It is time for a look at this weekend's slate of games, validate the expanded college football playoff. Caleb, you've said from the get-go that you did not think that the regular season would benefit, and as a matter of fact, be harmed by the college football playoff. I argue that that has not been the case. And in fact, that the college football playoff has actually enhanced the regular season. What say you, sir?
Yes, we are on total opposite ends of the spectrum on this. And guys, I don't care what y'all say about this weekend slate of games. And it's exciting. A lot of games that Tennessee fans have to watch. Tennessee's not the only one. A few other teams have to watch a lot of games too. This is the first weekend that's happened, though. This is the first weekend that's happened. Up until this point, every regular season game has been a semi-important game, but not a big deal if you lose. This is the first time that everybody's going to be watching games to see how it impacts the playoff.
Okay, but Caleb, that's not true. I watched it other times in September, and I made it a point to watch games like Oregon and other games that I wouldn't have watched before, or I would have watched, just kind of as, we get done covering a game, you're pretty wired up. So I would have watched it just because it was on. Colorado too, not just because of my Heisman vote, but other games I've wanted to see how good these teams are, partly because I'm more of an eye test guy, which you're not, but I would argue it's the exact opposite.
No, I think you just watch those games because you like college football. I'm going to be honest with you. And you would watch them anyway. I don't think it's that. Look, I'm sorry. We're using this week's slate of games because you know why we're talking about this, Dave? This is the first time all year where there's more than 2 games that will actually affect the college football playoff race because the scheduling has been so bad in college football this year. And I'm sorry, the NFL has had more meaningful regular season games in college football this year, most of the time. And the only time the regular season has been meaningful in college football a lot of times is when there's upsets that you didn't see, which, okay, that's exciting. Vanderbilt beating Alabama. If you're not a Tennessee fan, Arkansas beating Tennessee. Those things are happening. But by and large, there's not much anticipation that's been built up for games each Saturday this year. And that's been a problem with the sport. And you're telling me that the second to last weekend of the regular season makes up for all of that. It doesn't. It doesn't. Right. This is my argument, is that I've argued this the whole time. The college football playoff will make the second to last week of the regular season through December way more epic than it ever was. But it's at the sacrifice of all of September and October. Oh, and by the way, I'm not even that accurate about the second to last weekend of the regular season through December. You know why, Dave? Included in that is conference championship week, which doesn't even matter anymore.
Okay. I'll give you the conference championship games. College football playoff has helped or hurt the regular season. Helped. Caleb is wrong. Ha, ha, ha. Hurt. It just matters in the college football playoff. To me, it's changed it significantly. And I'll take this a step further. I said this in September, if you remember. I think the level of play has gone up because you don't have an elite team. You had an elite team when Georgia won a couple of championships, right? You had an elite team when Michigan won a championship, partly because they were cheating with Connor Stallions. But they were a very good football team. You do not have an elite team because we have now seen the impact of NIL. We have seen guys that say, I'm not playing at this school, so I'm going to go to another school. I mean, Dillon Gabriel is a great example. Yeah, he didn't sign with Oregon out of high school. He transferred there. I could go on and on and on about quarterbacks that have moved on and have had success, Caleb. And the whole level of college football is higher, partly because of the changes. I would throw college football playoff in there, but also NIL and the transfer portal.
Dave, you're cheating. You're totally cheating. Because here's why. I didn't sit there and lament the lack of top 25 games this year when talking about this. You know why? The lack of top 25 games this year comes from conference expansion and these mega conference that has created such an imbalance of scheduling. I'm not blaming the 12-team playoff for that. So you can't credit the 12-team playoff for the level of play coming up everywhere. That's because of NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, that's what's caused that. That has made it more exciting. Georgia week to week, Tennessee week to week, Alabama week to week. These teams that are top 10, they're playing games week to week where they could fall at any moment and you don't know when. It's not like a few years ago where, Dave, I mean, I do remember when you probably remember when you would cover Alabama, even throughout the 75% of the SEC season, it was, okay, how will they cover by halftime or not? I mean, that was the case with Alabama, and it was kind of horrible.
Okay, can I ask you this question, though? Do you think our fans, and they are, because I saw it crop up a lot on the message board, do you think they would be as worried about Florida Ole Miss if not for the college football playoff? That's still an SEC team. That's still one you're going to watch. Maybe you root against Lane Kiffin, or maybe you root against Florida just because of your own rooting interest and how you feel as a person. But you wouldn't go out of your way to watch that game, especially the holiday season, the holiday week coming up, maybe some of your family's in town. You're going to tell them, I want to watch this game because it affects Tennessee. And we're not going to go see, we used to always go see movies around Thanksgiving. I'm not going to go see some stupid movie that's on TV like Joker 2, which got just terrible reviews. I'm going to stay here and I'm gonna watch the college football playoff. I think it affects people and how they'll handle this weekend and all the weekends moving forward. I think your college football fans are going, let's say, I'm just throwing a number out there, okay? With our show, with Saturdays, with everything, they spend 10 to 12 hours a week, okay, consuming college football news. I think that number in the foreseeable future, and has been this year, is going to be 12, 16, 18 hours a week. And I think it's already shown up in some of the television ratings. The Georgia-Alabama game in September was one of the highest rated non-championship games in recent memory. What do you attribute that to?
Dave, that's my point. It makes the games, you're right, Tennessee fans wouldn't pay attention to the Florida Ole Miss game as much as they are now. But it's the second to last week of the regular season. You're missing all the other games in September and October that Tennessee fans did not pay that much attention to, that they would have paid more attention to in a 4-team playoff or a 2-team playoff. That's what I'm talking about. You are talking about, yes, around the holidays, things are getting much more exciting. And maybe that's fun because, you know, like coinciding this with the holidays is going to make it even more fun. But the truth of the matter is, it's at the expense of September and October. And I didn't want September and October to become irrelevant, and they have.
I want to play this to see if A, it makes people giggle, but B, to see that because of the power surge, if all my stuff is still working. So tell me if you can hear this.
Nope. No.
Okay, so you can hear it. All right, fine. It said that's crazy. Caleb, again, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Go back to September. Alabama's 41-34 victory over Georgia on Saturday night averaged 12 million viewers, according to Nielsen. It was also ESPN's most streamed regular season game. The audience peaked at 14.1 million viewers. To give you an idea, that is the most watched regular season primetime game since 2017, when Alabama and Florida State played on the opening weekend when everybody's excited, and got 12.3 million viewers. Caleb, if you're looking for more eyeballs on televisions, sorry, buddy, it's worked.
You just brought up Alabama, Georgia regular season. Alabama, Georgia are the two premier teams of college football for the past 5 years. If they ever met in a regular season, it was going to stop the college football world. And it turned out to be, the reason the game picked up, it turned out to be a thrilling game. You just mentioned Alabama, Florida State in 2017. That wasn't even a thrilling game, and it still outdrew Alabama, Georgia this year. There is not a game that had teams with two hype behind them of that level like Alabama, Georgia, in years.
Caleb, can I give you another example? And this is not in any way a scientific example.
By the way, hit the board. I think your mic's back, so I think you can hit the board now.
That's crazy.
There you go. We got it.
Oh, man. That was scary. Hey, it was nice, though, that we had a power surge during the break. That never happens. By the way, I mean, it happened right when we went to break. All right, so, but Caleb, I gave you scientific evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to give you day-to-day, just pragmatic evidence. I got a buddy who's not a big college football fan, but he likes Georgia. He's in the Chattanooga area, and recently a lot of people have picked if they like Tennessee, Alabama, or Georgia because there's no real allegiance in that city, which is part of the reason I didn't like living there. So he made sure, like I remember him saying the week of, I said, so what are you doing this weekend? He goes, well, I got to watch the game. I mean, he went out of his way to watch that game. And I think part of that is because a championship could be at stake in September. What if, Alabama beats Georgia? Both of those teams just have 1 or 2 losses at the end of the season, and that's the determining factor between a bye and or a home playoff game. I think they've incentivized it enough where it's not an elimination game like maybe it would have been back in the day where you had to go undefeated to make a national championship game. But I think it's incentivized just enough. I got a lot of problems with the college football playoff, but you and I are totally on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to if it's made the regular season special.
Okay, let me ask you this. You keep bringing up Alabama, Georgia. Did you really, how many people do you know that shut everything down to watch Oregon, Ohio State?
From the South or from Big Ten area?
Everywhere.
I'd argue more than would have had there not been a college football playoff and that game not meant so much. If that's
agree, that was
a non-conference game, it's way different.
Okay, totally disagree on this. I'll go a step further. Texas and Georgia. That game didn't have the same magnitude of feel to it and the same impact as it would have last year if Georgia beat Texas 30-15 at Texas. And
screw that.
I'm sorry. I just don't. Alabama, Georgia was a unique one in a unique situation. I think largely what you turn September into, look, opening weekend of college football to me, there were only, can we agree on this, Dave? There were only 2 opening events to a season that carry a level of magnitude as exciting as any other part of the season. And that was the Daytona 500 and opening weekend of college football. Does anything come close to those 2 in terms of how they carry the rest of the season for the sport?
No. Can I offer something up real quick?
What's up?
The Oregon Ducks defeated the Ohio State Buckeyes in one of the most highly anticipated games of the college football season. And this was written a month and a half ago. The game was broadcast on NBC during prime time, and the network just announced the matchup got a 13.4 million rating. That many viewers. That is unbelievable. That, to me, is absolutely stunning. According to NBC, the game between Oregon and Ohio State received the highest ratings of a Big Ten regular season matchup held during prime time since 2008. Caleb, I love you, but you're arguing up the wrong tree.
So let's go back to 2008. There was no playoff then. I'm game. They just said since 2008. There's my proof. 2008, when less people were watching, there was a game that drew better ratings.
Wait, but this is the first year of doing this. This is like you looking at Quincy Calhoun and thinking he's not going to be a great basketball player because he's 4 months old. I mean, they just started.
No, the first year is the spike because everybody's so intrigued by how this will affect the college football playoff. I told you this. There would be a sugar high with the expanded playoff, and there has been a sugar high. That sugar high is going to come down. I always bring up the NASCAR point. The Chase Cup, you do know, Dave, that right after the Chase Cup, NASCAR actually grew in ratings the next 2 years. And then it tanked. It tanked because the Chase Cup, all it did was make people not care about the Daytona 500, which was the biggest event of the year in NASCAR, and made people not care about any of those summer races because they said, let's prioritize November races, which was stupid. And I'm telling you, that's going to happen here. There's a sugar high, and you brought up Oregon, Ohio State. You can bring up Alabama, Georgia. But I can bring up these average, there hasn't been that many this year because of expanded conferences, not the college football playoffs fault, but there's not the same level of intrigue behind when a 4th-ranked Ohio State maybe plays trying to pull up their schedule right now because you're bringing it up. But if they play like a Minnesota or somebody like that, That doesn't have the same magnitude that it once had. And in a few years, Dave, I'm telling you this, in a few years, those Ohio State, Oregon, and those Alabama, Georgia games will carry very little magnitude going forward in a few years. People will not care as much about them. And I'm saying that's a sugar high for that this year. Because, well, Ohio State did that. Who was watching Ohio State blow out Michigan State? Who was watching them blow out Iowa? Nobody. Back in the day, you would watch that game because you might think there might be a chance Ohio State gets upset and things go a little bit haywire. So that's the problem with this system. And you are selling me on a couple of top 5 matchups during the regular season, and then November, the second to last weekend of November, the expanded slate of games. That doesn't make up for how every game mattered from the 20 to 25 up through September and October and early November. So you're going to see, I'll give you this. You're actually going to see an increase in regular season ratings this year over last year, I bet. I'm willing to look that up. I don't know if that's true. We haven't confirmed it yet, but I'm sure that'll be proven when the year ends. You'll see it next year.
Okay,
when
well,
2027 roll.
So far, the numbers I've gave you would support that.
So
college
far,
football playoff has helped hurt regular season. Help. Caleb was wrong. Ha ha ha. 68% hurt. It just matters in the college football playoff, and that's what you're tuning into.
So
may I give you just a little perspective as someone that covered NASCAR? I hate that comparison because NASCAR did so many things wrong when they were riding high in like 3 years. It's kind of like the superstar who decides that it's a good time to try some different drugs and it's time to do things like, I don't know, P. Diddy does. I mean, they did so many things wrong.
Wait, you're saying NASCAR ran a sex trafficking ring?
Yeah. I'm saying we need more lube. But Caleb, they did as a guy who covered NASCAR, I just can't even begin to list how many things they did wrong at that time. So I don't like that example personally. That's just kind of where I stand on that.
I think there is a level of, I'm just going to say this. There is a level of the sport being cheapened with Jimmy Johnson winning so many Chase Cup titles, though, because many people don't believe he's better than Earnhardt or Jeff Gordon or any of those guys were. And so it looks really bad that he has the most Chase Cup titles.
Well, here's the other issue. Is that they went into the fall thinking they could pull about 10% of the viewers away from football. And as one guy that knows football ratings and marketing, I said, can they do that? Because if that's their goal and that's it, you want to pull like 10, 20% away. You're not going to beat football, right?
Right.
But if you can just hold your own during football season, that would have been considered a win. And he knows television. And he goes, quote, he goes, college football is going to beat their ass. And I was like, okay. And the football in general, he's just going to be, it's not close. And he turned out to be absolutely right.